I thank you all for showing up for this nostalgic talk by Bharat Goenka. Now, 1 minute about this Bengaluru Tech Galli. It's a voluntary effort started off by veterans of the 1980s, 1970s, etc. And we want to showcase this and see that the public of Bangalore doesn't forget this, it doesn't get buried somewhere, because people should know what happened in those 2 decades. The first event we started off was with Vinay Deshpande, who was the senior most entrepreneur in Bangalore. So he came back from Stanford with Dr. Ravi, started PSI, and did a lot of pioneering work in hardware, etc. And then the second one talk is by Bharat. So these people were, so like that we're going to continue a series of talks. I want to call Amarnath Bhatt, Integra Microsystems, Muthu Krishnan, Dr. Vijay Reddy. So many people were there. So one by one we want to sort of bring them, put it on record and put it in the public domain. The second activity which we will start is some very focused tech seminars, for example, on cyber security, on cryptocurrencies, on personal data protection, what are the implications of the so-called metaverse. So these series of things we will have, it will be a very focused audience, 20, 25 really interested people, and then we'll get the best experts on that to talk to them. Then, of course, we also want to do some football, music, cultural events, etc. We are open to anybody pitching in. So I've left a few papers here. If you feel you want to get involved with us, you can just leave your email and number there. With that, let me go to my remarks for today. The whole question is, why did we want to hear Bharat speak today about Tally, his journey? What is so special about it? So to understand this, we need to have a perspective, I think. See, Bangalore is today very well known as a global IT center for services. And over the last 2 decades, 1990s and 2000s, it sort of developed its IT services sector. It's also home to a majority of 60,000 startups which are there in India. I think 30% of them or 40% of them are in Bangalore. More than $100 billion of VC investment has come in, and soon about 100 unicorns would have hatched. Today, you can sit at home in a coffee day or a co-working space with a laptop, and you can have some offering servicing worldwide customers, and you could land a VC funding deal. But in spite of all this, I can't think of a single homegrown software product which can be regarded as having a world-class traction and adoption. And this was done way back in the 1980s when things were so different and challenging. There was no internet, there was no cloud storage, no open source tools, no laptops, mobiles. I remember how people are sitting and doing that. The cost to start up was very high. I think a desktop computer was 2 lakhs or something, PC-80.
PC-80,
You guys,
640 KB, 20 MB
Yeah.
hard disk.
There was no financing available. Banks would say, what is this software? What is this project we do? And only local market was your available to sell. There was no global market, no internet cloud, etc. So against this background, in this background, I think many entrepreneurs really did a lot of work, effort, put out products, etc. those days. But among what stands out as a very successful thing is Bharat and Tally and what he did for it. I remember I'm going to talk something about you. So if my recollections are wrong, you please correct it when you are talking. It was a total hands-on design and programming. I remember that he was working with the C compiler and writing ground-up code. There were no big teams, and everything was hands-on on the technical side. There was a huge emphasis on usability, user interface, and I remember there was a big discussion about how you should have codes or no codes and codelets, etc. So there was a huge emphasis on user friendliness and there was a very brilliant customer acquisition strategy. In those days, all the big players like Sonata and Wipro and TCS, they had all these big, LAN-oriented software, and they used to sell licenses, and the pricing was very high. And if you had 2 departments, you need to buy 2 licenses, etc. But I remember that, in the case of Tally, he offered a limited period free trial. So you take it, you use it. After some time, if you don't like it, it just extinguishes itself and goes on. So this is a very brilliant customer acquisition strategy. The unlimited licenses, and you could have as a chartered accountant, for example, could have as many clients as they wanted on the Tally. And then he successfully scaled it to a global product. I believe it's in 100 countries today. And it was totally funded by internal cash flows. Am I right? So there was no venture capital, there was no this thing, profitable company and organically grown and all that. So it's a true, Atmanirbhar story. There's a lot of talk of Atmanirbhar now. This happened in the 1980s when, you know, people hadn't heard of the IT industry. All that happened in the 90s and later. So this is something to be emulated by tech entrepreneurs. You should pass on this message. And I'm sorry to say that even today, there is no comparable software product. I can't think of designed and made in India and funded by internal cash flows and standing the test of the global scrutiny. So that's the reason I thought we should get such people and help them to give them a platform to share their stories. And I'm sure we'd all like to hear from him what is his story. Origins were modest, lot of struggles, successes. What are his takeaways? What are the future plans? So I will now invite Krishna Rajan to introduce Bharat, and then we'll go on to Bharat.
So it's a great pleasure for me to welcome Bharat, as I've always known him, and I'm going to read out what was there earlier in the invite so that I don't miss out on anything. Mr. Bharat Goenka is the Vice Chairperson of Tally Solutions Private Limited. A technocrat at heart, he established Tally Solutions, earlier known as Putronics, in 1986, under the guidance of his father, late Shri S.S. Goenka, to leverage technology to help entrepreneurs manage their business better. Under his dynamic leadership, Tally has grown from an accounting package for SMEs to a complete business management software for all types and sizes of business. A mathematics graduate, Mr. Goenka invests most of his time to give design inputs for companies' future products and technologies. In 2020, he was conferred with the fourth highest civilian award, Padma Shri. So I feel very proud when in all our school alumni and all that. Boss, do you have an Padma Shri as your classmate? So, so for his exemplary contribution in the field of trade and industries, honored by NASSCOM with their first ever Lifetime Achievement Award and the title of the Father of Indian Software Product Industry, he was also conferred with the M. Visvesvaraya Memorial Award in 2017. Okay, so that's the formal introduction. Okay, so Bharat and I have been classmates since fourth standard. So that means what, 50 years now, right? 50 plus years. So we know each other for 50 plus years. So first 10 years, maybe different sections, but we always kept in touch. He was very quiet in school, and I guess he still maintains that same style. But very easy to, very easily, you can make friends with him very easily. He was always helpful. And I wouldn't say Bharat, we were the toppers, but we were the second tier, something like that. So we used to exchange notes and learn from each other. So that was how. So the 10th standard happened. 1976, we kind of passed out of school. After that, I lost touch with Bharat briefly. Then many years later, I came and I joined a company in hardware manufacturing company. And it so happened that one of the biggest sales at that time was Bharat buying, laptops for Putronics in his company. And I just went and met him, and, it's like, jab we met, deal was done. That's it. So there's nothing more to say. Krishna, you are there. I know you will take care of me. So, and then of course we've been in touch, and then I think a lot of the ex-ICO company guys I can see over here. So, they were part of the journey along with Bharat. So that was our small contribution to to your Tally story, Bharat. One of the biggest trait, okay, about Bharat as a person, very simple, humble. I mean, and he's a person that I can pick up the phone and call, and he will answer. If not, he'll say, Krishna, I'll call you back. And he will always do that. And I think that's something that he does with everybody. So he is very reachable, and being the vice chairperson of such a big company, I hesitate many times to even, call his number, but he says no problem. Uh, I recently was there online, Bharat. I couldn't attend the general KST lecture. So one aspect of what he said in that lecture was kind of ingrained. He said that business is not about making money. It is about the exchange of energies. And I kind of started internalizing that kind of statement. And for me, it meant a lot of things. One was the money part, the good money and the bad money that you spoke about. Maybe you can tell the audience that. And then, of course, for me, it was like, if you look at it, all of us who started as entrepreneurs, we learned a lot from our customers, right? We learned, they were telling us, they were giving us feedback about their product, how to make improvements. That's when the innovation started happening. So I think if you partner with your customer and this energy exchange that Bharat mentioned happens, I think that's when you are successful. Then recently I called him, and asked him, to invite him for this event. So what are you doing now, Bharat? He said, no, I am programming. So he's back at, so that means there's something up, right? And so Bharat, maybe some part of, perhaps you can share some of the Tally future story also, in addition to the past. All right? Yeah. So with that, hand it over to Bharat. A big round of applause. Thank you very much, Bharat.
Thanks. Thanks a ton, Ashwini. Thanks a ton, Krishna. And first, let me honestly tell you, I am really, really flattered to see this crowd here. I'm really flattered. You can see by the absence of hair and the whiteness of whatever little is remaining, I've been called a dinosaur of the present tech era on my face. Right? So you all should take everything that I say with a pinch of salt, because a lot of it may be irrelevant in the way the world today is and the way the world today thinks. And therefore, I'm even more flattered that so many of you have taken time out to come and listen. Taking a little bit from what Krishna said, it was just occurring to me that maybe if we can spend I would want to spend some 15-20 minutes on what you would really call nostalgia, right? That what was the world like in those days and how things have happened, and spend perhaps 5-6 minutes in comparing those days with today. And not really talking about the journey from then to now, but just the stark difference of what was and what is. And therefore, when you want to look ahead, you can't look ahead from what was 30 years ago. You can only look ahead from what is there today. Right? And why I'm back in genuinely programming, not designing. I'm actually writing code. Right? So a couple of references got made to that time, that you would buy a machine, and the context is not how expensive the machine was. The context is not that a PC XT at that time with 640 kilobytes of memory and 20 MB of hard disk would cost 1.4 lakhs or 1.3 lakhs. Yeah? Because 1.4 lakhs, 1.3 lakhs in today's mental image, is really not that much. I mean, nowadays you buy an iPhone, it is more expensive than that. Yeah, actually, the easier way to look at it is, in those days, you would pay an accountant 1,000 rupees a month. So it was 140 months worth of salary. One piece of equipment would be 140 months worth of salary. Right? And in today's days, you can buy a machine which is typically just 1 month worth of salary. So the way you think about hardware today and the way you think about buying IT today is completely different from the way you would think about buying IT. That because you would want to say that, okay, if I bought this machine and what will it do for me? Right? And you can't tell someone that what it will do for you is it will save you some person's time. That time did not cost anything. That time cost 800 rupees, 900 rupees a month. And how much will you save me? I mean, I'm not going to live long enough to take benefit of that saving. Okay? So the whole perspective about IT was different. Okay? Then when you think about machines of that kind of size, right, 640 kilobytes, right? We're not talking about 640 megabytes. It's 640 kilobytes. And in that 640 kilobytes, the operating system had to first run, on top of which your application would run. So the usable space you had in the system was typically about 380 to 390 kilobytes. And you would get 380, 390 because you went and configured the operating system to consume less than is required. Otherwise, you would get even less than that. And you have to write a running business application which does something meaningful for the end user. You can't ask a modern programmer to even think in those terms. They can't even relate to the concept, because today if they write a small application called Hello World and they compile it, that one application will run into almost a megabyte or so. You take the simplest application that you take on your phone. You download an application on your phone. Yeah. Hardly any application is less than 40 megabytes on your phone. Yeah. You go to any Play Store, go to any app store. Yeah. You want a slightly more meaningful app, and sometimes it's 200 megabytes, 300, and it doesn't matter to you. At worst, what will happen? Instead of downloading in half a minute, it will take 3 minutes to download, but it's a one-time download, big deal. Okay. So the whole concept of size and thinking about writing programs in that kind of size has just become alien. But those are what I would call technical stuff. Let's take from a user's perspective. And that's some of the best nostalgia of those days. So for the first time, most people were confronted with how the US lives. And I'll explain what I mean by that shortly. Right? Because most people had never been to the US. Right? And so now they've got a computer, and let's assume that we have gone and sold the software to them. And now I was both the programmer as well as the tally care, the specialist to take customer calls. And say Krishna would call me up saying that Bharat, tally is not running. I said, no, don't worry, we'll figure it out. Can you just tell me what is happening on the screen? No, nothing is happening. I understand, but can you just tell me exactly? So when you type TALLY, what happens? Is it showing you bad command or file name, or what does it show you? He says, nothing, there's nothing. You're scratching your head and you're asking, is the system on? Well, yes, I just switched it on. So again, you're scratching your head, trying to see that he's saying that nothing is on the screen, and he's also saying the system is on. And then you realize, my God, he's an Indian and he's using an American machine. And in India, you put the switch down to switch it on, but on the computer, You put the switch up to switch it on. Right? So I had to again ask him, okay, you said it is on. Can you tell me which direction the switch is pointing? And he says, I just put it on, I put it down. I just on it. Yeah. And that's the kind of environment that you are dealing with in your customers. You are not talking about how to use your software. You're talking about how to use the system. We used to have an exhibition and people would come and they will stand there. We'll give them a demonstration of how the thing works. And they'll say, okay, so how much does it cost? So at that time, we used to sell it at 10,100. We said it's 10,100. So this, that is along with the monitor. I said, no, that is the hardware. It's just the software which is 10,100. I said, so show me the software. So no, that's what I was showing you. I was showing you the software. But you just told that this doesn't come with it. And it would take you 20 minutes to explain to them that you can't see the software. And then he's trying to figure out that what am I asking him to pay for? Right? How do you pay for something that you can't see? Right? So yes, it used to be fun. It used to be fun. It was that in that way it was nostalgic. And what makes it special was it was easily much harder to earn money in those days in the tech business. It was easy to spend money in the tech business because every piece of equipment would be amazingly expensive. Every piece of equipment. It didn't matter what you are buying. You are buying a floppy disk, it is expensive. You are buying a floppy disk drive, it is expensive. Your hard disk has burnt and you have to replace it, is expensive. And far more expensive than the people available. So there was no reason for people to buy tech, and there was no reason for people to pay for software more than the tech. Yeah. That buying hardware was hard enough, and then paying for software on top of their hardware was even harder. My apologies. These are all part of the old age syndrome when you have to put alarms for some reminders. Yeah. The last anecdote I want to give from that past was actually two related anecdotes. They are similar. Today, when you want to sell software to someone, you don't have to check, do they have a hardware on which you can demonstrate your software. They have it in their hands, forget about their offices. You can literally walk into anyone's office and you can demonstrate software to them. Whether you are demonstrating cloud software, doesn't matter, but you never have to check, do you have IT equipment? In those days, no one had IT equipment. So you had to carry the computer with you. Right? And the box used to be at least this size. And then there was the CRT monitor, right? It was not these flat screen monitors. So you had one big hulky monitor along with it. And multiple times I have been sitting at the back of a scooter with a gentleman called Ronnie Thomas, who used to be one of our senior salespeople. So I didn't know how to drive a scooter, so he would be driving it and I would be sitting at the back with the computer and with that monitor, and we would be traveling for tens of kilometers just so that you can show it to someone, you can set it up for them and you can show it to them. So it was amazing. To the point that in Kolkata, where scooters are not the norm, we used to, I don't know, is anyone from Kolkata, anyone understands, has Kolkata culture? Yeah, a couple of people, right? So there you have a term which use the word jhaka. A jhaka is a basket that people carry on their heads for, when you buy vegetables or even goods transportation. So we used to hire a jhankawala to carry the computer as you would go from office to office to demonstrate the software. And you're talking about now serious IT equipment being carried by a jhankawala just so that you can sell your stuff. So it was great. It was great times. It was great times. And yes, we were self-funded, which seems to imply that in an industry which used to cost money and money was hard to make, we must have been a well-funded family ourselves. And the harsh reality was actually that we were a family in very deep debt, and we could not afford actually anything. Right? In fact, I believe Krishna would remember that just out of our friendship, he had to face a lot of flack inside this company because the speed at which we were able to settle the bills of the equipment that we had bought, right? So, and yet the reality was finance is not accessible as easily as it is available today. Okay? And it is not so much about whether the journey was hard. I think it was more about that the journey was fun, right? That's what really made it all worthwhile. It was fun to see magic happening in front of your eyes. And when I say magic happening, that magic was the way the system would run, the way the software would run, and the way the customers would respond to you when they would see the magic in their hands. Right? And that just made everything worth it. And that journey is what got the family out of its debt. It then put us onto a path of prosperity. And all of it happened due to the principles which my father had explained about what business is about, which is something which Krishna referred to. And we used to do this with every single customer. Our conversation and our promise used to be that we are not here to take your money simply because business is not about exchanging money. It's not about you buying my goods and giving me your money, or my buying your goods and giving you my money. It is always about an exchange of energy. And these are just forms of energy. Right? Money is one form of energy. Goods are another form of energy. And the principle was that if what I have given you does not do good for you, what you have given me can't do good for me. Right? So if my software doesn't work for your business, it's not about giving you a money back guarantee. The subject is, if my software has not done something good for your business, selfishly, I have to give your money back, because if I keep your money, it will not do good for my business. Because what I have given you has not done good for your business. These sentiments, they used to echo with customers. Right? And they used to, we have had conversations with people who finally never purchased anything from us. Simply because, as I said, why should I? I mean, I'll hire another 3 people if I require to get more work done, or I require to get it done faster. Why should I invest so much money? And yet, these sentiments used to resonate with them to the point that they wouldn't buy, but they would get their friends to buy. And the second principle which Father laid down at that time was, we were very clear that we wanted to be a product company. And very few people realize what the meaning of those words are. And I think we were blessed that we understood the fundamentals of what does it mean to be a product company. So I'll take some examples to see if you all can relate to it. I can bake biscuits, and you can come and buy them from me. And you can go to a store and you can buy a tin of biscuits. Both of them are biscuits. Right? So does it mean that if you come to me and you buy biscuits from my counter, like a bakery, am I selling you a product? Right? And if so, what is the difference between what I'm selling you and what you buy at a confectionery store in a tin? Yeah. And there is a difference. What you buy from me is actually not a product. Right? And what you buy on a confectionery store is actually a product. And there's to make my biscuits capable of being sold on the shelf of a store which I don't know about to a customer whom I'm not going to see requires productization of my biscuit. I require to ensure that it is packable. I require to ensure in the packing it doesn't crunch and break and crumble. I have to ensure that it has a shelf life because I don't know when it will be picked up and purchased. And when it is purchased, whoever opens the tin finds it fresh enough to eat. I don't have to do all of that when I am running a bakery and a customer comes across and buys a biscuit from me, which I may have baked today morning or maybe have baked yesterday, and I give it to them in a paper bag for them to eat. So this concept that a product is something which requires to be productized, it is not that because I have sold the same thing to 5 people, therefore it's a product. It is something which an unknown seller can sell to an unknown buyer, and to make a product and make a software which is capable of being sold by unknown sellers to unknown buyers takes a different kind of engineering. Okay? To make a software which I can come to his office, understand from him and install it and get him to run it, and to come to him and get him to run it, that takes a different kind of engineering. Okay? So we learned one of those things very, very early in our lives. The second thing that we learned was that when people buy your product, what have they expressed? They have expressed that they have liked your engineering, right? Well, that's the reason why they bought it, because it's not that you are the only one who's selling such a product, right? There are so many other people. People can get it built, they can get it, buy a competing product, but they have bought yours. So obviously they liked what you have done. And because they have liked what you have done, they will want you to do more. They will say that, oh, you have given me an accounting software, can you do my inventory for me? If you have given me an accounting software, why don't you do my payroll for me? And we were very clear. And recognized that we were a family in debt, and every single penny counted. And we completely shut out a source of revenue which would traditionally be called services. We did not make a single penny out of offering services to any customer, including customers who had bought from us and with whom we spent several days, not just training them, in several people's offices. I have sat there for 2 or 3 nights to catch up with their backlog of data entry so that they can take advantage of the software we have given them. And we would not charge them a single penny. Okay? And our reason was very clear, that the day we get hooked to the taste of this much easier source of money from your existing customers, we will stop chasing new customers. And if our only source of money is by licensing sold to new customers, that's what we will keep chasing. I think those fundamentals were so deep and strong that it changed the path of the company, literally forever. It's been 35 odd years now, and we continue to recognize these principles. Okay. So they are what I would call the customer side, the business side, and I'm a techie at heart. I don't know how many of you are techies in the room, but I may bore you all with some of the tech related conversations today. So I will take you all back to the nostalgia and the contrast of today. That PCXT of 640 kilobytes used to run on a chip which was called the Intel 8088. The same architecture actually survives today. It's called the 8086 architecture. Right? the x86 architecture, as many people call it. And the chip used to run at 4.77 megahertz. That was the default speed of the chip at that time. Today, the default chip, the speed of most chips are upwards of 2 gigahertz, and which is 500 times faster than what you used to be. But far more than that, there is hardly any device available where the chip is not made of multiple cores. Each core is really like a computer in itself. Right? So if I take the machine which I have today in my office, that system has got 16 cores, and each core is 500 times faster than the machine which I first had. So 16 times 5, this machine is supposed to be 8,000 times faster than the machine I had. Its memory is close to 4,000 times more than the memory that I had that time. We used to get a modem which used to run at 300 baud. 300 baud is 300 bips per second, which is approximately 128 bytes per second. 128 bytes, not kilobytes, not megabytes. Right? And today we deal with saying that, oh, do you have broadband? And what does broadband mean? It means anything which is upwards of 30, 40, 60 megabytes per second. Right? We are used to those speeds. You take your LTE phone, it runs at 5, 6, 8 megabytes. Right? It is, again, some 1,000, 2,000 times faster, the network speeds, than it used to be. Hard disk speeds, hard disk capacities are 3,000, 4,000 times larger. Why am I making those contrasts? Amongst this amazing, amazing, fabulous advancement which has happened in hardware, you've seen such an extraordinary decline in software that it is not funny. Right? What do I mean by extraordinary decline in software? In spite of having systems which run 5,000 times faster, software still doesn't run fast enough. That's the reality. Right? Many of our software has started running slower than it used to. If you will take your previous version of Microsoft Word and say that, I used to run Word 10 years ago and I'm running it today. And if by chance you do have a machine which was 10 years old and you do have a Word running on that 10 years old machine, you can start both of them and you can scroll down. Okay? And you can see the speed at which the document scrolls down. And you'll be amazed. My God, I've got a faster machine, but the software seems to run slower. And programmers have this excuse, oh, but you see, it's a more complex software, it does more. Oh, I'm sure it must be doing more, but scrolling is something fundamental. How can scrolling slow down? Scrolling had just better be faster if it's a faster machine. The graphics card is faster, the chip is faster, you have more memory. But with this passage of time, programmers have lost fundamentals. Actually, hardly anyone knows how to write programs anymore. We were just talking about it a short while ago. Now, you don't really have programmers, you have assemblers. In those days, when we used to use the word assembler, it used to mean assembly language code. And in fact, the first several versions of Tally used to have 20% of its code written in assembly language. That's when we used to use the word assembler. But nowadays, the word assembler is used to say that I don't need to write code. I mean, this code is, all the code whichever required to be written is already written. I can go to open source sites, I can pick up what I want, I can put them together, and bang, whatever you want, it runs. And yes, it will run. The trend is not a bad trend. The trend of saying that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, obviously. Why do you ever have to reinvent the wheel? What has the outcome of the trend has been a really bad one. People go to college, they spend 3 to 4 years in a computer science course or a tech course, engineering course relating to computer science. they learn all the fundamentals which are needed, and they remember it to the extent of the semester, because the application of those principles are not known. So no one knows that even when they use something from the web, from some open source environment, they don't even know how it works. See, genuinely, when you are, it's like saying that I'm a doctor, and I'm a doctor, but I don't understand how medicine works. All I know is, oh, if you got fever, I know what to prescribe, but I don't know how it works. Well, really speaking, I don't even require a doctor to tell me that. I can Google it. Oh, I've got fever, what medicine to take? The reason why you go to a doctor is because a doctor is supposed to understand your body, understand the pharmacology of that medicine, and understand why something is good for your body, which is may not be the same thing which is good for his body. Right? Because I understand your body, I understand his body, and I understand medicine. So when people lose fundamentals, you lose a lot. You lose an enormous lot. Okay? And the journey that you are seeing today is where programmers have disconnected from these basics. So instead of better hardware becoming a better platform to deliver better software, it has just become a platform to make my life easier, right, as a programmer, right? Because I can do things with less effort. And again, I would want to quote my father, which was an episode which led to the birth of the codeless accounting system. Right? My first demonstration to him had been obviously with codes, in the sense that so I had done something and I wanted to show it to him, and I started typing T001, and I pressed enter. Below it, the name came, traveling expenses. So he asked, so what is T001? I said, that's the code for traveling expenses. He said, so why did you not write traveling expenses? I mean, why did you write T001? And I said, well, a computer doesn't understand codes. It doesn't understand English. It understands codes. That was the end of the demonstration. And he ran the company for 16 years and he refused to learn anything about computers. Refused. So the demonstration ended by his telling me, I don't understand you. Because whenever you talked to me, you told me computers are dumb machines. It doesn't understand anything. And now you're telling me it understands codes but does not understand English. So first, help me understand what you know about computers, then we will figure out what needs to be done. So you choose your words carefully. And you say, see, it's easier to write a program which works using codes than to write a program which works using English. Which was the more accurate statement. And he said something which 35 years later, we as a company continue to follow with literally as a religion. He said, are you writing programs to make life of the programmer easier or life of the user easier? Right? It changes your thinking. It changes your thinking about what is your role in life. The way when doctors take their oath, it makes them think about why did I become a doctor and therefore how should I behave. So when you want to call yourself a programmer, it makes you think, okay, what do I really want to be able to state that I have achieved as a programmer? And this decline that you see, where people have lost pride in their understanding of the art of programming, is a sadness. Perhaps I'm saying this because of my gray hair, right? You have conversations with youngsters asking them that, right now you've got a multi-core CPU which has got capacity for so many threads. So how many threads should you have on this CPU? Oh, and they'll parrot off something that they've learned in college, that if it's got 8 cores, you should have 8 threads. I said, fabulous. So if you're running Windows, I'll ask them, okay, can you just open Task Manager, go to the Task Manager, so give you some statistics, go to the Performance tab, go to the Performance tab, I asked him, can you see? Right now the system is telling you how many threads are active on this machine. And inevitably, the number of active threads on that machine will be in the range of 3,000 to 4,000 threads. And nothing is really running. It's not that you've got some 10 applications running. You just got the operating system running right now and stuff like that. So I said, look, if what you are saying is right, that on this machine there should be only 8 threads, and what you are seeing here is that it has got actually 3,000 threads, then this system should not have been functioning. But it is functioning. Do you know why? Well, the reality is they don't know. Now, if you don't know why, how will you write a program which will take advantage of an 8-core machine? Because you don't even know why it works. And these are sadnesses of today. You don't know how the GPU system works. You don't know how memory works. You don't know how disk I/O works. You don't know why an SSD is better than a hard disk. And yet, you claim to be a programmer who's out to solve end customers' problems. Which, in a way, leads to the journey that we as a company are on. So I was introduced. I don't know how many of you really noticed the very clever title that I have. And I'm genuinely saying it's a very clever title, right? It's a vice chairman. It's a vice chairperson, actually. Right? Why is it a very clever title? It means I am not got the highest title of the company. Right? So obviously I'm not the head of the company. And neither do I have the role of managing director, so neither am I running the company. So technically, I'm doing nothing. Right? It's one of the best titles to have in any organization, vice chairperson. You have genuinely no responsibility, no authority, no nothing. And that's reality, that's the present reality. And that allows me to do what I want to do because I'm not responsible for anything and therefore in that way not answerable for anything. And therefore I've gone back to programming because, and in the last 2 to 4 years, I think I've written more lines of code than I wrote in my first 10 years, and definitely more lines of code than I've written in the past 20. And the reason for doing that is to see that how can you bring the art of programming alive in an environment which has such rich hardware, and what is the magic that you can do with this new hardware. And what is the magic that you can do when every single thing is connected? What is the magic that you can do when every single person has a computing device of a power in their hands, which is already 500 to 800 times more powerful than the machine on which you wrote your first program? Right? And once you start thinking in terms of that, you suddenly discover that software does not seem to have advanced that much. Right? It does not seem to have really brought alive this advantage. In fact, it seems to have taken some reverses. You have this amazing paradox, that year on year, the devices in your hands and the devices on your laps and your devices on your desktops keep becoming more and more powerful. And year on year, people keep telling you, oh, you know what, you should not do anything on these devices. You should do everything on the cloud. But you should keep buying this more capable devices, not to do anything, simply to connect to the cloud, because everything should be done there. And you scratch your head and wonder that, okay, why am I buying a more powerful device when in any case I'm not supposed to use its power? Because the software is being built to use the power on the cloud. And then you ask people, do you understand what is that power on the cloud? I mean, is it hardware different? No, it's the same hardware. Okay, if it's the same hardware, but you can't make good use of it here, what makes you think you can make good use of it there? Right? And no one has an answer to these things. But there's in Hindi we use this word bhed chal, right? That everyone is walking in one direction, and so I feel that if I walk in the other direction, people will think I'm a fool. And that's why I'm called a dinosaur. And genuinely, I'm called a dinosaur because I don't seem to be up to date with this new tech. And the problem is actually I understand that tech at the fundamental level, while people understand it at the surface level. Yeah. And when I try to make them understand it at the fundamental level, they're not interested. It's like my saying that you really want to have a good beer. And what I'm trying to tell you is, but you know how a good beer is made, it goes into this. You don't really care, you just really want to have a good beer. As a user, that's a great attitude to have. As a user, yes. As a developer, as a programmer, it's like saying that as a person who's running a brewery, I don't need to know how to make beer. I only need to know how to sell beer. How the hell will that work? Okay? So when technicians forget these fundamentals, and all that one is wanting to now to do is, how do you bring this new world of new great tech on which new great software can really change your lives? Right? And because it needs to be revolutionary to change your lives. It can't be evolutionary. Evolutionary things never change anything. Right? They just make things better. Yes, you keep improving. But all changes take place because something revolutionary happened. I can't claim, I don't want to claim that, oh, what I'm doing is going to be mind-blowingly revolutionary. Yeah, no one can predict the future. Maybe nothing will emerge out of what I'm doing. Yeah. Maybe even if it emerges, the timing will be wrong. It will be either too late or too early. And therefore maybe, but again, I would go back to that hard journey 30 years ago was a fun journey. And I'm hoping that the next few years is also a fun journey simply because of what we are trying to do, okay? Irrespective of what turns out to be. Okay? And I only hope that if people in the technical field resonate with anything which I have said, it will inspire them to try and understand how tech works. Because when you do that, you can do magic with it. If you're an architect, if you don't understand structural engineering, you can't make great designs. You don't need to build yourself. But if you don't understand structural engineering, you can't build great design because you don't know what is possible with the materials which have come into existence. So to be a great architect, you have to be a great structural engineer. To be a great programmer, you have to understand your technology. Right. So that's really all I have to share proactively, honestly. I don't know if there's a Q&A kind of setup or environment, and if there is, we can do that.
So very good evening to all of you, and thank you, Ashwini, for this impromptu opportunity of me to have a conversation with Bharat. Whatever he has shared so far has been so exciting, and I'm sure there will be far too many questions which you will be hoping to get answers from Bharat. I'll just make a couple of remarks about my recent conversation with Bharat a few months ago. I picked pretty much on the same subject. But by the way, by way of an introduction, professionally, I'm a professor of entrepreneurship at IIM Bangalore. And prior to my academic career, I was also part of the Indian IT industry pretty much the same time when Bharat, Ashwini, all of them were very active in building up companies of their own in the 80s and 90s and almost till early 2000. So our paths did cross at that time. So many of the anecdotes and recollections which Bharat has been talking about, in some way or other, we have been part of that story, watching from the sidelines, sometimes directly speaking with him. And I've done the same thing which Ashwini said, walked into his Palace Orchard's office and see him sitting in one corner and coding when everybody else is doing something else. And to fast forward it, I think he has built an enormously successful company. More than successful, he has built a very, very respectable company. And as Ashwini mentioned in his initial remarks, you can count very few companies of his genre in this entire IT industry field. So what we will do is we'll probably go around the hall and have a few questions. I will just ask one question to use my moderator's privilege since Ashwini put me here. And then I'll leave it open to the floor for you all to shoot your questions, and then I'm sure we'll be waiting to listen to Bharat. Bharat, it was fantastic listening to you in terms of how you ensured the focus on the product business. That you were completely unwavering about what you set out to do, and product was your business. And you stayed the path, and then finally success eventually happened to you. But the same time frame which you are talking about, the world around you was behaving very differently, right? For some of us who were part of the Indian, at least Bangalore's IT scene in the 80s, we all know how many big companies started with a product focus to start with. The personal computing gave them the impetus, and many of the big names of today initially cut their teeth in the product business, and very soon they sort of abandoned the path because something more attractive was available. That's where the services were business shot. So I have two questions, related questions. One is, on the one hand, you were saying that you were a company in debt, and you were very focused on ensuring that you meet all your financial obligations. But then there was money around on the other side, which is not in relation to the product. So how did you resist that temptation? So that's one. The second question related, I'm saying, you talked a lot in your later part of your address about how, as much as the capability of the hardware has improved, software has remained pretty much static, or if anything, it has deteriorated in terms of performance. To what extent you would sort of correlate that with the ascendancy of the services business in preference to the product business? So I'll stop here and let you answer.
Thanks, Kumar. See, so I'll take the first, which is slightly easier. See, you have to first recognize what is it that you are good at, right? And when I say this, let's understand, it was not just opportunity which made these companies large. Opportunity was always there, but they were really good at something which I know that I can never be there. Right? And so let's take a simple example. I think this year or last year or just before COVID at least, there would be an announcement that say TCS is intending to hire 250,000 engineers this year. Do we even comprehend that number? Right? It means hiring approximately 1,000 people a day. Hiring 1,000 people a day. That means, can you imagine how many interviews you have to do and finalize 1,000 people per day? And those 1,000 people are not revenue ready. Right? They are raw material for you. And then you have to train that many people to make them revenue ready. It takes me a year to train 2 people.
Okay.
Right? I have no comprehension as to how they do it. I have genuinely no comprehension. I have a great deal of respect for the fact that there are, and there are not too many of them actually. If you think about it, there are just a handful of such companies who have mastered this art of being able to take raw talent, being able to assess them, hire them, make them capable, and make them productive in environments. It's an amazing art. And not too many of them have done it. And whoever has done it, hats off to them. To say that, oh, just because they have done it, why can't I do it? It's genuinely equivalent to saying that, look, Amitabh Bachchan can do such a wonderful job on KBC. Why can't I go and do such a wonderful job? You just can't do it. And so we were very clear that this is not, it's not that you didn't think about the idea. You thought about the idea, then you discovered that, oh, I don't think we've got what it takes.
Okay.
You just don't do it. Sorry.
No, I
missed
was
the second.
talking about the gradual, I would say deterioration, that the gradual reduction in the quality of software programming which you are talking about, whereas the power of the hardware has been progressively increasing. There's a huge gulf over here.
Yeah.
Is there any correlation between these two divergent trends and our focus,
and
with the focus on the services?
No, not really. Not really. See, the increase in IT adoption has been the major impetus on the growth of the services industry. Right? So when large companies have grown larger, which happens literally all the time, uh, and they want to focus on their core area, which, let's say, GE wants to focus on whatever GE does best, or Ford wants to focus on whatever Ford does best, and therefore they would prefer to outsource the ability to get their people running, their systems running, their people trained on the systems. They would prefer to outsource it, and that, I think, has been a continuously growing opportunity for the services industry. And again, I think they have risen up remarkably to meet those changing demands, including changing demands in terms of changes in the way people thought about security, the way people have thought about new technology which they want to adopt in their business. And people have done an amazing job of it.
Okay.
But it's more driven by adoption of tech rather than decline of software as a phenomenon.
So thank you for clarifying that. Let's go to the audience, please. You can take the mic.
So either you can come there and ask, or you can take the mic.
Share the mic.
The mic we can pass around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You hold this mic.
No, take this. Recording. Okay.
My name is Alok. Is it?
Because there's a recording.
Hi, my name is Alok. I have a question. With the cloud, the environment is changing drastically, right? The customer behavior is also changing.
Yeah.
And customer stickiness is becoming quite low, right? Because obviously, as you said, the programmer's quality has come down. I also run my own company, so I can relate to what you are saying. So, with this kind of dynamics, the patience of the customer is also gone. So, how do you see a 20-year back customer shift paradigm in terms of retention as compared to today?
Yeah.
That's the first question. Second question, okay. Second question is related to that. Since you talked about in depth and taking the company forward, etc., we are also in a similar situation for last 3 years. Being, how do you motivate yourself in during those days when you basically feel like one side you have good customers, even I have, like I bought USV and all that, but one side you feel like that, and the other side you feel like it's quite depressing. How do I basically manage the finances, etc.
Right.
So this is my second question to you.
Okay.
Thank you. Please.
Thanks, Alok. So the first is actually relatively easier. Yes. Customer loyalty is a myth. There is no such thing, honestly. Right. Everyone loves to talk about it. Everyone likes to put up their collar in terms of the kind of customer loyalty they have got. All of us are customers of something or the other. It may be a shirt brand, it may be a shoe brand, it may be a software, it may be hardware. And I believe none of us really care about the brand. We just care about what we want. And if that brand continues to give you what you want, you will continue to stay with the brand. If someone else gives you what you want, you will just shift. Right? That's a basic reality of life. There's no such thing as customer loyalty. There never has been, and there never will be. And the faster you realize that, the more paranoid you are about needing to remain relevant even to your existing customers. It's not just about needing to be relevant to a future customer, because your existing customer is guaranteed to go away from you. It's only a question of when. And someone had said it very beautifully. No customer continues to use the same software beyond a couple of years. The question is that the new software they use, is it coming from you or is it coming from someone else? So is it your new version that they are continuing to use, or they are getting someone else's? Yeah. So has it changed? No. Even 30 years ago, it was exactly the same. It was exactly the same. Right? If you were not relevant, people are not interested in you as a company. They are interested in their company as a company. Right? So they want to do what is right for their company. If your company is right for their company, they will continue with you. If your company is no longer right for their company, they will continue with whoever they think is right. And so I hope that answers the first question, right? Because nothing has changed in 35 years. From the second perspective, I'd like to give a little bit about philosophy, a little philosophy on this actually. See, somehow all of us get trained to not fundamentally trust nature. We don't. So it's not about being godly or whether you're a theist or an atheist. It's nothing to do with that. It's just about fundamentally trusting nature. And the most important thing about nature and what makes life beautiful is that the future is unknown. We like to predict the future. And today we will both make a prediction that something is going to happen. And if he says A and I say B, obviously both will not happen. Either assume for a moment either A will happen or B will happen. If B happens, I would like to put my collar up and say, see, I told you so. The reality is I didn't know. I thought it may be so. But it could have become A, and he would have told, see, I told you so. And we fool ourselves into thinking that sometimes what we thought turns out to be true means that we are able to predict the future. Why is that important in the question that you asked me? See, all our emotions, whether it is frustration, whether it is joy, whether it is sadness, all our emotions are something out of our minds. And when the future is unknown, you can become very sad about the future by thinking about it darkly. You can become very happy about the future by thinking about it brightly. Just because you thought about it brightly is not going to make the future bright. And in the same way, just because you thought about it darkly is not going to make the future dark. The reality is future is unknown. It will be what it will be. Right? You can't change the past and you can't predict the future, but you can definitely change the emotion you feel about the future. So you can keep thinking about, and we tend to extrapolate the present to the future when every single thing in your past history would have told you that that present also does not stay. The future is always different. So yes, today you may be going through trouble and therefore you will think about the future as troublesome. And today you may be prosperous and therefore you'll think about the future with prosperity. But neither of them is predictable. So just think about the future with brightness. Your frustrations go away. It seems a very stupid thing to say, but you will be surprised how much sense that little statement has got, that the future is unpredictable. Don't try to predict it. Just try to imagine it. And therefore imagine it with brightness. It will change your emotions completely.
I request people to come here and ask the question. We have 15 minutes. We'll close at 8 o'clock. And I'll reserve the last question for myself. So please come here.
Please.
Yeah. I'll try to keep my answer short. I'm sorry about that. It just took a little longer.
Good evening, sir. I am Ajay. I have a small manufacturing company of my own. What I want to understand, you said when you started programming and selling Tally, system would cost 150,000 rupees. You're trying to sell a software for 10,000 rupees. And you could hire an accountant for 1,000 rupees or less.
Yeah.
I'm in a similar situation. We have come out with a lot of innovative products. Our pricing is definitely higher than what other products are being used in the market.
Yeah.
So wherever I go with my product, everybody says, "Main kyun kharido?" It's much more expensive.
Yes.
What's the value you bring to the table?
Yeah.
So I want to know what kept you onto your product when everybody told you, "Hey, you're very expensive. You don't make economic sense. You don't make commercial sense."
Yeah.
So how did you keep going after it? And was it not a big risk you took at that point of time? You didn't know whether it will work, not work. Where will you end up? You didn't know you will be here today,
Yeah.
right? So why did you choose to continue with it? Thank you.
Yeah. So thanks. It's genuinely a very nice question. And again, the fundamentals of the answer may or may not resonate. So I made one statement 2 or 3 times. It was fun, right? And almost all our sales used to take place with the same emotion. That it was that we would tell people that don't buy the software because you think it will save you money. Don't buy the software because you think it will make your business more efficient and therefore you will earn more money. Buy it if you think it will change the way you do business. Okay? And if you don't enjoy doing business more because you have purchased my software, then it's not worth purchasing. And we continue to make that statement till today, that if it does not make your life more joyful, because you see anything that you buy, right? We buy expensive phones. What is the ROI on that? Really? Okay? There's no, I mean, if you think in terms of ROI, you can't buy anything. You can't buy a nice pen for yourself. Right? And you'll find many people, okay, it's his birthday, let me gift him a Mont Blanc. Why? I mean, or what does it do beyond writing? No, it only writes. It doesn't even write better than some other pen. Right? So the value of it comes from the emotion that you attach to it. If there is no emotion attached to it, really speaking, there's no value to it. So if you have made something innovative, will I enjoy using it in my organization as part of the equipment which I manufacture if it's a part which I buy? So if I buy from him versus I buy from you, will I enjoy my process more? Will I find that I tend to have lesser quality issues than I used to have in the past, and therefore I enjoy the process of manufacturing more? See, if something doesn't change in my life, then my inertia will keep me going. And if something is going to change in my life, at some point, the money stops mattering. The change matters. I hope it made sense.
I'm Santosh. I started a software product company in 2008. Somewhere in between the era. When you started, it was a different world. I started, it was slightly better, but now it is full of money. Now the question I have is, if you have to start again today, the type of industry we are in, before you think about an idea and you put out there, you want to become a unicorn, you want to just raise money, you are completely forgetting what product you are developing, what are the fundamentals of the product and why should it be, and the products which we see getting valued are delivering food and delivering medicine. The type of products you are developed are the core systems which had a lot of functionalities. So how do you look at the current world? Are we really developing products here? Or are we creating something called products and getting funded?
Fair. So I'll try not to be controversial about it and try to be as honest about it as I can. Right? So I just made a point to Kumar that when I look at a TCS or an Infosys or a Wipro, I'm in awe of what they have achieved, right? Knowing that I can't do it. And genuinely, by the same token, when I look at a Flipkart or a Zomato or a Dunzo, I'm in awe of what they have done because I know I can't do it. Right? It's because these are not about just engineering issues. Okay? See, in contrast, for example, I'm not in awe of how Microsoft Word or Excel works because I know I can do it. The fact that I chose not to compete with Word or Excel is not because I can't do it, but because I've chosen not to. In contrast, I can't say I can compete with an Infosys. I know I can't. I can't compete with a Zomato. I know I can't because I don't understand enough about how to do that kind of business because it's not an engineering problem alone. Okay? So when you take engineering at its heart, then what you are saying I will back. That yes, what we are doing in Set Alley, what I'm doing for the last 4 years is really deep engineering. And genuinely I can put up my hand and say that across the world there will not be more than 7-8 companies in the product space who are doing the kind of engineering we are doing. But and no one will pay for that. No one pays for the engineering. See, you don't pay a premium for an Apple phone by understanding what kind of engineering they do. You pay for that Apple phone for the kind of experience they deliver. The fact that that experience is delivered due to that engineering is incidental. Right? If they did not do that engineering, that experience wouldn't be there. Right? That's what we are hoping will happen in our upcoming future. So many of these unicorn businesses are not even attempting to be this kind of product. They're not trying to be another Word or Excel or anything. Right? They are trying to be a service in the hands of a very large number of consumers. And they have somehow perfected that art. They have understood how to do it. Is it purely advertising? The answer is no. Because if it was purely advertising, then every funded company would be successful. And every funded company advertises, and a few of them turn out to be sticky in the hands of the consumer. So they have cracked something which is beyond the engineering aspect of it. And so that's my answer really, that I don't understand enough of the business to give you a qualified opinion as to what makes them successful.
Yeah. Who's next? Yeah, please.
Sir, my name is Prashant.
Hi, Prashant.
What's your take on Zoho? Maybe you can summarize everything that you discussed from beginning till end. What's your take? It's
Okay.
good. It's not good.
First, as a company, it's a fabulous company. Right? I have very, very great respect for Sridhar and the work that his family and the entire Zoho company has done. Right? See, being a multi-product shop is not easy. I mean, we have struggled to be a single product shop, honestly, right? And to be able to straddle a multi-company product environment is something phenomenal, right? And really hats off to them. So if I'll take Zoho just as a representative example, because if you take the world, you have a company called Xero, XERO. You have Intuit QBO, which is QuickBooks Online. So you have a whole class of software of my space, which are what you would call purely on the cloud. And then you have a class of software like mine, which are presently purely on the premise. Right? And therefore, it is treated as a cloud versus premise kind of a war. And I've also been credited by saying that that Tally does not believe in the cloud, which is far from the truth. In lighter vein, I've made a statement that you look, India is an agricultural country, and to a farmer, sunshine helps, the rain helps, but the cloud really doesn't help. Right? I mean, if it doesn't rain, then it just hides the sun. And if it rains, they are really worried about the rain rather than the cloud per se. But jokes aside, what we have not been comfortable with is that taking something that you were doing on your desktop and shifting it to the cloud, when the power of your desktop was already underutilized for whatever you were doing, and therefore, really speaking, no advantage has been taken of this really remarkable infrastructure which has happened out there. Right? So we have been against the fact that you may trust me, you may trust my company and say, I am willing to put my data in your servers because I know you will take care of it well. Right? And the problem is that you will be making that statement of trust to perhaps the iconization of Bharat Goenka. But I'm a company already of 1,000 people. Can I back your trust? Okay? And until I can back your trust, I don't want to take your data. So we started with that as one fundamental statement. that perhaps you would like to put your data on the cloud, and perhaps you would like to put it on my cloud, and perhaps you are willing to trust me, but am I willing to back your trust? And until I understand what it takes to back your trust, I would prefer to lose your business than to give you a false hope of trust. Right? So things started from that as a framework. The second thing that we looked at is that this amazing infrastructure is coming, and this amazing infrastructure is not just an infrastructure on the cloud, it's really an infrastructure of connectivity. See, cloud is just a component of the fact that you are connected with literally every single person in the world. So can you imagine a new world where, because businesses are connected with each other, the way they do business changes, the way they run their software changes? That's really what I am presently working on. Right? It is to do with saying, how do you take advantage of this new connected world, of which cloud is an integral part? I don't need your data for that, but I need the infrastructure of the cloud to ensure that your data can actually talk to someone else's data and world can change for you. Okay? I want you to be able to imagine that the concept of data entry has not disappeared. Okay? If you take even a simple business transaction, it takes multiple points of data entry. I send you a purchase order, you punch it into your system, then you make an invoice on me, I punch it in my system, then I make a payment to you, I punch it in my system, then you punch it in your system. Can this whole thing simply become a single transaction? That I raise a purchase order on you, you only need to accept it, and it becomes a transaction in your system. You just need to convert it, and it becomes an invoice in mine. I just need to accept it. Okay? And when you eliminate data entry completely, you can imagine the kind of ease that you can focus on your business, rather than focusing on the correctness of your information. Okay? That is what we believe is how the cloud will change the world of tomorrow, rather than taking your data from your hands and putting it on the cloud. So at a philosophy level, for our product journal, we are not talking the same things when you say the name Zoho or QBO or Zero or anyone who's on the online business. And as a company, genuinely, very, very deep respect for them. Genuinely, I mean, what they have done is phenomenal. Their turnover is multiple times my turnover. Their customer base reach and the range of customers they've got in the upper segment and so on is amazingly more diverse than what we have. So genuinely, very deep respect for them.
Thank you, Bharat. That was very interesting.
Hi, sir. I'm Gopinath Sridhar. Today, India is moving towards digital India. And how far our cyber security in relevance to that? Do you think it's completely safe, or he needs to work on it?
Right. So the problem is with this word, cybersecurity. Right? It's one of the least understood concepts. Or what creates digital security? What do you mean by digital security? Very, very stupid examples. You send me a WhatsApp message. Therefore, your phone number is with me. Have I stolen your phone number? I mean, your phone number is no longer secret, right? Many people think that, my mobile number should be with me. But the moment you have used your mobile to do anything, your mobile number is already out there in the world. Right? And at the same time, someone will tell you, oh, so-and-so website was hacked and so-and-so telephone numbers got stolen from it. And therefore, is that a security breach? Okay. So because security breaches are when something which is inherently not supposed to be known gets known. So yes, if passwords get stolen, it is a security breach. But you hear this term cybersecurity as a problem, saying that email addresses got out in the market. I mean, email addresses are just out in the market. I mean, what's the point of having an email address which no one knows? Because no one can talk to you anyway. Right? So this term has these what I would say, they have got overused. They have got overused, and they have got the way movie names. Yeah, you've seen the movie Sholay. Do you ever think about what the word Sholay means? No, it's just the name of a movie now. Yeah? The same way the word cybersecurity is just a terminology. You don't really try to understand, and I'm not just saying you. I mean, genuinely, people don't try to understand what are its roots. And I'm not trying to claim to be a security expert. I'm only wanting to express that it means so many different things that it is impossible to answer that question at the surface level. Right? Is it important? It is equally as important as security of your house. But do you really keep two commandos outside your door because you're worried about the security of your house? Do you really keep a very, very strong lock on your front door? No. We have a saying in Hindi, chor ke samne kya tala, that even if you put a lock, if a thief wants to get inside, the thief will get inside. So you put a lock not to keep thieves out. You put a lock to keep curious citizens like me out. Right? So the bulk of what is called cybersecurity is oriented towards normal protection, the way you normally protect your house. At the same time in your house, you'll be having jewelry, which you may put into a little extra security. You'll have a safe and then you'll put it inside that or take a bank locker and do it. Okay? So the lock on your door does not give you as much security, but perhaps the lock on your safe, you hope, gives you a little bit more security. So there are various levels of this concept called security, but it is generally just put as a blanket statement and then it loses its meaning. So that's...
Thank you, Bharat. That was very, very interesting way of looking at things. Yeah. Actually, I think I should turn it over to you for your last questions. Yeah.
Sure.
When we are all of a generation of the 1980s. So, for example, myself, Vijay Gupta, here, we never took placement after doing the IIM. We just went into the garages and started doing something, and you also did the same thing, coming from a different direction. And in those days, we always used to think of people like, Dan Bricklin, who wrote the VisiCalc sitting alone. We think of Gary Kildall, who wrote the CPM operating system sitting alone. And they all became world-class products, multi-billion listings, set a trend, new paradigms. Are those days gone? Are we just living in our past? Because today everything is, first you have the money and then you have this thing, and the whole thing seems to have reversed. So my question is, should we just think about those things and leave it as nostalgia? Or is there something which we can do to bring awareness or do something about it so that such things can still sprout given the Indian conditions? So that is my...
Yeah, I think... Yeah, so I do have my biases. That I don't think innovation worldwide is dead. If it was, many of the things that all of us take for granted today would not exist. Right? The phenomenal rise of video conferencing is not a story which is similar to Zomato or something, right? It is a tech story. Yeah. The phenomenal rise of just mobility-based connectivity. Right? Mobility-based voice itself was a phenomenon, but mobility-based connectivity, where many of us are less concerned about whether if you're in a crowd, whether your child is still with you or not. You're more concerned about whether your phone is still with you or not, and whether your phone has got connectivity. Right? The point I'm making is that in a world where you will always have tens of thousands of ways of making money with relative mediocrity, you will always find revolutionary innovations coming and changing the world. And sometimes they do it without even becoming a commercial success. They need not become commercial successes to change your life. Okay? But life-changing events happen because something really innovative happened. Okay? And I think there are enough people, sometimes people stumble upon it and therefore it happens. But there are also enough people who passionately chase it. And as with all innovations, if 10,000 people are chasing it, perhaps 2 or 3 of them will get something which is truly innovative out. And we all keep looking forward to it. At one point, we had thought that the mobile revolution had reached its peak. In your minds, you can't imagine that a computer company would change the mobile game. Right? If the iPhone had not come out, Nokia would have remained king. Okay? So Nokia was the benchmark of innovation in mobile phones. And when Apple came out, it was treated as, okay, they are doing some experiment. They changed the landscape. Yeah? They are not the largest sellers. They are the most profitable company, but they are not the largest sellers because they are such an expensive phone. But there is no phone today that you can buy which is not modeled on the principles on which the iPhone was built. Now that is what is innovation. I would like to take credit to say that between father and I, in 1988 when we launched our first software product, it was the codeless accounting system, and everyone poo-pooed the idea because no one used to have it. And 5 years later in India, you could not sell an accounting software which was not codeless. So we may not have been selling the highest number of software, but we have changed the game. Okay? Innovation always changes the game, and that will always keep happening, whether it becomes a commercial success or not.
So, can I make a... Okay, I think, Bharat, it was fascinating to speak with you this evening and then recall your ideas. I'm sure all of you would have noticed Bharat has opened out 3 different strands of conversation, similar conversation we can have on 3 different evenings. He's talked about cybersecurity, he's talked about his view of the cloud, and definitely the philosophy of business, which he talked about, the fundamental philosophy of business, which seems to be a little dissociated from practice these days. I think, thank you very much for bringing all these insights into that. Ashwini, thank you for putting me in the spot. I'll confess that I'm going back sufficiently chastised. Because my day job is to teach entrepreneurship to MBA students. So I try to run a course over 20 sessions and try to get some ideas across. And I think Bharat should do it in 45 minutes rather than my going and wasting 20 sessions of my students. I think it was a fantastic insight, Bharat. Thank you very much. It was a lovely evening. Thank you.